Welcome to Gaming Golf Podcast. Jeff Erickson, Jeff Ritter, Scott Jenstad here. A combination of RotoWire and Morning Read. Guys, it's PGA week. Could be the toughest major of the year in terms of the course. Excited about it. We're playing at Kiawah Island. It's 8,000 yards. Next year it's going to be 10,000, I think, or whatever. But they're going to keep on anti-Brysoning it, and I think that's actually going to make it worse. But let's get started right away. I'm excited about this tournament.
Yeah, I'm fired up. I mean, the Ocean Course, I think this is probably the PGA's best venue in terms of like if you want to call it the Rota, they don't really officially have one, but I think of the places they return to, I think Kiawah is great. It's distinct. It just gives it an identity. It's going to feel like a major. It's going to feel like a unique, difficult test. You already alluded to it. I think this might turn out to be the toughest golf course played of the major championships this year. And guys are going to get beat up. If the wind blows, I mean, guys might get annihilated. So there's a lot of potential for carnage out there. So I'm very excited for this week. I think it's going to be tough, and for a viewer, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it really is. Scott, they played here. I think what was it? 2011, maybe
2012.
2012. Yeah. Rory won by 8 strokes at 11 under. Just blew away the field. Blew being the operative term because the wind was really blowing that year. That second round, I think the scoring average was like 78, which is just insane for any tournament, even a major. But how excited are you for this tournament?
I'm excited for it. I love majors. I love, you look at the DFS and bets, and there's just so many options. Last week we're talking, you got a few options up top. You got to find some guys. Like this week, there's great names at every level. It's just so fun to talk about. It's so fun to play. Yeah, I think it all depends on the wind. I mean, if the wind kicks up, it becomes a really, really difficult test. It's, like you said, 7,900 yards, which is just crazy length. But you look at the wind, it's not kicking up yet. There's like 13 miles an hour is the biggest day. But I saw some clips today out of the range, and caddies had their wind finder out there and trying to figure out how 15 miles an hour affects shots one way or the other, or what the distance is. So I think it's a really fun test. And sitting at home watching, it's always fun when these guys have to really grind to make pars, which makes it fun. But I think there'll be some birdies out there, but it'll just be the wind based on what our final score is going to end up.
Yeah, every green's elevated here too. It seems like so. It's not just length; it's just every approach is uphill again. Oh yeah. You get all those false fronts and all that, and you factor in the wind. It's amazing. So we mentioned Rory is the last time won here. The last time won comfortably. He won in his last tournament, first time in a while. Broke a drought, and here we are, just in time for a course that he does well at.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, it all of a sudden, just like that, for the entire spring season, people are kind of wondering, well, where's Rory? What's going on with Rory? Just kind of drifting. And then all of a sudden, there it is, lock it in, find it, win at Wells Fargo at another one of his favorite tracks. And now, gets to ride momentum into this week. And just like that, the story, I mean, we're starting with him. The story starts with him this week. He's a betting favorite, defending champ as far as the course goes. And, he deserves to be the first topic of conversation as we kind of get into this week and look at everyone's chances. It does start with Rory, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny because his last couple of tournaments, he putted so well at Wells Fargo and then putted terribly at the Players. So it's just a matter of if he's hot and the putter's working, he's one of the 5 or 6 guys that if they play your A+ game, you're going to win the tournament by a few shots. And there's probably 5 or 6 guys up there that they do play their A+ game, we're going to get wins, but. I mean, the fun part is there's a lot of those guys this week. Wells Fargo, he had a few, but everybody's playing this week. I wouldn't take him as the betting favorite, but I tend to not take the betting favorites anywhere. There's some guys behind them that I like, but he's sure a fun story this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And golf is better when Rory's playing well. He's one of those star quality sort of guys, especially with no Tiger. You want to have some guys that have a little bit of personality, a lot of familiarity, and it makes for a better game. So. We'll see. Let's just jump right into it here in terms of what skills do well at the Ocean Course. We've obviously mentioned that Rory's done well here. Jeff, what do you look for here, stat-wise, profile-wise? What type of player does well here?
Yeah, I mean, well, you look at who was contending last time, maybe as a place to start. Obviously, suits Rory pretty well, and players of Rory's ilk. So, stats for me, I just went right to tee to green as the first start. If you're not getting off the tee and gaining on the field in that stat, I think you're really going to be behind the 8 ball this week at a course like this. So Omar Uresti probably just set him to the side. You look at Rory, you look at the power players who have that blend of power and control. And that's where I started as far as breaking down from a stats point of view.
Yeah, I mean, the fairways aren't small, but you got to hit them. I mean, it's all about angles of this course. It sounds like you got to be on the right side of the fairway to really attack pins. And it's funny, I saw there was a Golf Digest guy that said it's the hardest course he's ever seen, like if an amateur were to go play. He said a scratch golfer would shoot over 80 at this course just because of the angles and where the pins are and the length of it. So it's interesting that you're going to have to drive the ball deep. I mean, I don't think you toss guys out who can't hit the ball far, but they got to be able to hit the ball well from like the 200 to 225 range. You got to have the long irons kind of dialed in. So it's going to be it's an interesting test in that regard. But I think that shot gained approach is big for me. Tee to green. I kind of tossed putting this week just because they're on a surface that they never putt on. It's a surface they use at like Mayakoba and Puerto Rico, but it's a very different surface. So I think that hot putters this week are going to be hard to figure out. So I'm kind of tossing. I'm looking for ball strikers and then hoping the guys I pick end up at least putting average.
Isn't that always the strategy, though? Doesn't almost every course they play at now? Obviously the surface is not an issue everywhere, but aren't we always saying, okay, find a good ball striker and hope the putter gets hot? We don't care so much if they're great putters. Yeah,
I think a little more this week for me. I'm looking at the around the green stats because I think with the length, they're going to have to get up and down a lot of spots. So there are some players that in the around the green, the chipping, those kind of metrics, I am looking at a little bit more than I would normally. So I think maybe I'm looking at putting less and around the green stuff more. I like you look like a Patrick Reed kind of guy and get up and down from everywhere. With the length of these holes, you're just not going to hit as many greens as normal. You're going to have to be able to get up and down.
Yeah, but Jeff, you hit on it though. That is the trend of major championships though, is they're getting longer and tougher, more brutal. And that was, Bryson saw that trend, and that was the inspiration for him remaking his whole body and doing this whole, the crazy Bryson plan, that he's put into motion he thinks the way he calculates it is by just adding length and becoming the biggest driver in the game. There's enough there statistically to make up the rest. And that's make enough of a difference on the field. And he's now won one major. I think he's on the very short list for this week as well. So, but I think you nailed it with that point of this is the trend of particularly the majors, where if you don't have a big game for a big course, your odds get even steeper.
Well, it seems like every course's reaction is to Tiger or Bryson proof a course, and that only gives them a greater advantage over the field. It seems like it has the opposite effect. It doesn't level the playing field. It stretches it.
Yeah, I think they're at the same time, maybe I think of the USGA, but even all the majors, they don't want 20 under winning their title. Augusta doesn't want to see it. The PGA doesn't want to be seen as kind of the softest major either. So you're right. By doing so, it does only enhance the Bryson effect, right? So that's the irony is that he sees the trend coming and he's out in front of it now with the extra 40 pounds and 40 yards off the tee or whatever it is that he's ended up gaining through all this. So,
absent like growing the rough to 12 feet high and having lava pits to the left and right of the fairway, what do you do? How can you level it? Isn't that the great question?
I think narrower and tighter angles as opposed to just throwing tees farther and farther back. I think trying to reward accuracy and strategy more so than just I got to get 320 off the tee or else I'm hitting hybrids all day while Bryson hits 8 or 9 iron. I think there's more to be done with architecture. But it's difficult. How do you re-engineer some of these courses? Augusta National
they're great courses too. Yeah, it's not like these are like, oh, okay, let's just tear up the course. And no, they're famous courses for a reason. Scott, what do you think?
What do you guys think we get as a winning score this week if you had to even to throw a number out there for what we see Sunday afternoon?
So Rory won. I don't have this at my fingertips. Rory's score was 13, 14, something like
11.
That.
Okay, he was 11.
He was 11. Okay. So I threw this on Twitter because I looked up his score from last time and I forgot what it was. It was 11. So I said 11 again. And I just thought if the wind is down, there's now enough Rorys in the field. There's enough people with that player profile where someone's going to shred this thing again, and maybe, there'll be 3 or 4 guys I think that could potentially take it deep if the wind doesn't go crazy. But otherwise, this could easily be a tournament where 3-4 under par has you right there on Sunday too.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay, let's start looking at the field. So Rory is the betting favorite. He's the most expensive player in DK, which, at Wells Fargo is at 10,000. Now he's at 11.5. Your buy low window is gone. But it's Rory, it's Justin Thomas at 11.3, DJ's at 10.9, despite, which I guess is low for him, but his recent form's been pretty awful. Rahm's at 10.5, Bryson is at 10.2, and Jordan Spieth at 10.1. Those are your 6 golfers over 10,000. Pretty consistent, at least in terms of the structure there. What jumps out to you guys at those prices? We'll start with Scott this time.
So it's tough. I mean, it's one of those weeks where there are a lot of guys in the 6s and 7s you could play. So if you wanted to get 2 guys up here and kind of jam it in, you could. But there's so many 8 players in the 8s and 9s that are great names too that I'll probably end up with 1 guy up here. And since we got to kick some guys, and they're all good players. My top pick in this range is actually Justin Thomas. He's 4th in the field, tee to green. He's 6th on in ball striking, 2nd in approaches. He just hasn't been putting the ball well. And if I'm going with that approach, if I want the best ball striker, or I want the guy that I just hope he can putt average. He's top 26 in 5 straight. 2 of those he lost more than 5 shots putting, so he's going to get killed with the flat stick. He won the Players in March, though. His approach game is elite the last 5 tournaments. He's just a guy that I think is hitting the ball best, and that's what I'm going to take at this course right now.
It's a good pick. It's hard to believe Thomas still has 1 major. Feels like he's been elite long enough now where he's overdue. To me, Bryson is still the guy off this top tier. I just think, given the profile and the fact that he's got a major championship win in a runaway, there are only so many guys that can win a major and win a major big. Justin Thomas hasn't won a major big yet, but he certainly would say he's got the game where that could happen. But, Rory locked in, obviously, has done it before. And Bryson's done it before. And I just think, we didn't see it yet, last week in Texas, last couple of weeks. It just kind of been flickering, I think. But this just feels like a get right course and the right kind of fit for him. So he's on my short list. And if I'm going to grab somebody off this top tier of the DFS 10,000 and above tier, I lean Bryson first. And Rory's great, but what fun is it to take the odds on favorite? Now it feels like you can't make money on Rory, so you got to go elsewhere. So for me, it's Bryson.
No talk about Jon Rahm this week, which I find interesting. His recent form isn't great. Obviously, he missed a cut, but tied for 34th last week at the Nelson. Not a great recent form for him, but used to be like, oh, this is Mr. Steady, Mr. Consistent. What's wrong with Jon Rahm? Anything?
I don't think anything. I think it's just a couple of down weeks. I think that at 10-5. I'd play him over Bryson. I'd pay him over Spieth this week. If I had to pick one, I'd go JT.
I would go Bryson over Rahm by a nose, and even over Spieth, who might, thanks to Rory's resurgence, all of a sudden the career Grand Slam storyline drops down a tier. I'm sure if he's in contention, it's going to come up a fair amount on the weekend, but at least heading into the week, he gets to ride some really good form. This has been as much as we're talking about the Rory rebirth, this season's also been the Spieth return too. And so here he is. He's got to also be feeling really good about his game. I don't think this is the best type of golf course for him, but we've seen that he can make up, the strokes with grit and iron play and in other ways. So I wouldn't fault anybody for taking Spieth and building their team around him as well. Every guy in the top tier, really. There's a couple I probably would fade, but Spieth certainly isn't one of them.
Is there a particular ball flight that does well here? Like, is there, especially off the tee, would you prefer a player that draws the ball regularly, or a person that has a little tight, controlled fade?
I don't know. I mean, to me, it's just, the word I think is just control. Whatever that looks like for the player is just to be able for them to just stand on the tee and feel confident and just know where the ball's going. More so than the flight itself. I don't think there's enough. The course is shape, the lay of the land, it's like a figure 8. So you're going to get whatever the wind is, you're going to get it into you, against you, every which way. So there's not really a ball flight, I don't think. I think it's more just the control player.
Okay. Yeah, because sometimes like at Augusta, you're like, oh, okay, well, you don't want, some lefties are actually doing okay here.
Yeah.
But it's interesting there. Okay, let's move on to the next tier, and we start off with Collin Morikawa, who obviously has had some success in majors and won the most recent PGA out at Harding Park last year. had that incredible drive to green on the par 4 to kind of cement it, but it kind of hides how good he was with his iron play for the rest of the tournament. How does he fit this course's profile?
Very well, right? I think he's top 5 in tee to green on the season. Comes in as defending champion. Runs a little hot and cold, a little streakier than you would think for a player who's with elite ball striking profile, which really I think just comes down to putting. And so, Scott, I would agree with what he said earlier about putting, where that's if you had to take a stat to maybe de-emphasize this week, that's probably the one, because, any of these guys can get hot for a week and it doesn't really, there's no course experience. There's no Augusta, years and years of learning the subtleties. So I think Morikawa is an interesting pick, and maybe, especially for the DraftKings crowd, maybe someone that will get a little bit under selected just because it feels like, it's repeat now. Oftentimes you just kind of throw those out quickly, but I'd watch out for him this week. I think he's got a great profile for this course.
I absolutely love Morikawa this week. I think I love the 9,000 so much. I think there's some interesting builds in DraftKings where you just start with Morikawa and you go either 2 guys in the 9s or even 3 in the 9s and get really cheap, where you kind of skip that top tier and you get a really well-balanced team. But I just think he's the best iron player in the world. He's number 1 in approach in this field over the last 36 rounds. Just strictly comes down to putting. If he putts average, like no strokes gained, I think he'll be there on Sunday afternoon at contention. 4 top 10s his last 7. Just tee to green approach numbers are so elite. I love his profile for this course. If he can just putt average, I think he's got a really good shot to win. I like him as a win bet too. I think he's 30-1 right now on DraftKings Sportsbook. He's 30-1. I love that bet. I just think you give me the guy that's hitting the ball the best in the whole world, and I'm going to take it.
Indeed, I like that. I like that take. The rest of the talked about this $9,000 tier. Let's break down the rest of them here. Morikawa's at 98, Xander Schauffele 96, Brooks Koepka at 95. Hideki Matsuyama 94, Viktor Hovland 93, Webb Simpson 92, Patrick Reed 91, Patrick Cantlay 9,000. You guys mentioned, I think it was Scott that mentioned you want to find some guys that can, who are good at chipping, because or maybe it might have been Jeff. I forget which one of you two mentioned that, but you're going to miss some greens here. Does that kind of hurt a guy like Viktor Hovland?
Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, it's funny because Hovland's hitting the ball so well, but it does hurt him a little bit. He's putted the ball. He putted really well his last couple tournaments, but around the green stuff is definitely he's gotten better at it. But that's the spot where you do worry about him a little bit. I think that he's actually gained strokes in the last couple of events, but lost 5 of 6 before that. I think that Hovland and Schauffele are going to be insanely high owned this week. I think getting them in the 9s, I think a lot of people will pair one of the top guys with them and then kind of get cheap after that. I think a lot of people will pair both of them together and get cheap. You get Xander under 10,000. There's a lot of people picking him this week. There's a lot of people picking Hovland to win. I think those guys will be very high percentage for a good reason. They're both really good players. It could be the time that Hovland maybe breaks through, but you look at someone like Patrick Reed and you wonder just how low percentage you can get a guy that, plays well on tough, long courses, play well in majors, plays really well around the green. He's a very risky pick. He's not someone you want to, maybe have in your core, but if you throw him in there as a pivot to Hovland and Schauffele, you're going to get probably half the ownership and just as much win equity as you get to the 2 guys. Yeah,
it's Hovland is enticing because you nailed it. The scrambling and around the green game is sort of his Achilles heel. And there's nothing like Kiawah around the greens. This is just like the ragged dunes and, dramatic drop-offs. And you can just get yourself tangled in all kinds of crazy spots out there. So that is kind of the red flag on Hovland. The green flag, though, is the fact that the guys, when you said, Scott, you felt like Morikawa is hitting it the best in the world right now. I actually sort of feel like it's Hovland.
He's right there for sure.
I just think, what is he? How many top 3s does he have in the last? Is it 3 in a row or something like that? He's just running hot, and
he has 6 top 5s last 10 tournaments, which is pretty bonkers.
Yeah,
is that something you'd be interested in?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a trend. So I recognize the risk with him, and I think maybe that statistical profile keeps him a little bit depressed because I don't know. For me, I feel like Hovland's a top 5 or 6 favorite this week, and he's priced down there as like 10 to 12 range, 9,300. So to me, I feel like that's a DFS value, and at 22-1, I like that value too.
I think everybody's going to be – there's going to be a lot of lineups with Hovland at 9,300. I think that's the price is just a little bit lower than it should be. I don't think he should be below I mean, it's all big names, though, so it's hard to say who should be ahead of, but I think he should be up a little bit. Like, I certainly wouldn't have put him behind Brooks.
It's edible
Koepka's a fade. I think Koepka's a fade. And same with DJ. You gotta, you can't pick them all off this top tier. And I just think I would have liked to have seen something more out of Koepka in, coming off his knee injury. He's a big game hunter, but I don't know. This doesn't seem like the kind of place you're going to go to try to find your game. You gotta have it. So, and DJ, I mean, gosh, fading DJ and Koepka in a major championship is like the recipe for failure over the last few years. But in this particular week, to me, it feels like the play.
Before I move on to the 8,000s and beyond, let's take a quick break from our sponsors here. That was a very quick break. We are back. If you were live streaming with us there, just a little ad break for us, for those on the podcast end. Let's move on and move to the $8,000 tier, where I think there's going to be some more chalky players. Are they going to be as edible as Cory Connors in the Masters, or as edible as Viktor Hovland seems to be here? Let's talk about that. It's not a big tier in the 8,000s. Start with Cam Smith at 8,900. I know Pat Mayo, our colleague, really loves Cam Smith this week. Will Zalatoris is at 88. Daniel Berger at 87. Tony Finau 86. Scotty Scheffler is at 85. Matt Fitzpatrick, not Matthew, is at 84. Sungjae M 83. Tommy Fleetwood 82. Justin Rose 81, and then Tyrrell Hatton and Louis Oosthuizen at 8,000. Guys, who jumps out to you in this tier? Let's start with Jeff this time.
First name I circled on this tier, for better or worse. Sometimes you just got to follow your gut. And the first one I circled was Tony Finau, who I have not really looked at that closely this year. I've kind of fallen into the narrative with him of the when is he going to win? We're way overdue. Just win somewhere, right? But we forget that this guy's been very close in majors before. He knows how to play the final group on Sunday. He's done everything really but win one of these, or win somewhere. But I think his game fits the profile. Again, for me, I started with tee to green. I saw Finau pop up as, 10th in that particular stat. This just feels too low for a guy who's played at an elite level and been on that top tier now for a good while. And I don't know. You could talk me into several guys off this tier, which is why I like Scott's strategy of saying, build around the 8,000s and 9,000s and maybe get 3 of these guys. But something led my pencil to Tony Finau's name this time. And we'll see if it's right, but he's on my card.
Yeah, in terms of betting, Finau's let people down, but like Jeff said, in terms of DFS, I mean, he's last 19 majors, he has 9 top 10s and only 3 missed cuts. So he's been really good in majors. You just worry a little bit about current form. I mean, he missed 3 of the last 4 cuts, so he's not playing great. He was playing really well in January and February, and he finished 10th at the Masters. So he did have he snuck in a really nice major in there. But you just wonder a little bit where the game is. Everybody's talking about Cam Smith this week. You mentioned Pat Mayo's actually picking him to win. He's 8,900, just a ton of buzz, just an elite short game. We talked about the around the green stuff. He's maybe one of the 2 or 3 best in the world around the green. So that should help him. He's fifth in short game in this field. He's 3rd around the greens, 12th in putting. Little shaky off the tee. He was a little bit better last time he played at RBC Heritage, but he hasn't played. He played once. He played the team event that they won since mid-April. So you wonder, if there's a little bit of rust into that first day, but I dropped down between those 2. I like Will Zalatoris again at 8,800. I love Daniel Berger again at 8,700. I'm hoping he gets lost a little bit between the Finau and Cam Smith love. Berger's just ball strike has been elite the last couple of tournaments after a little bit of a blip there at the Masters. 5 top 10s already this season. Really good price for Berger. And, Zalatoris, he played really well at the Masters, then kind of had a little bit of a downfall, but just plays great at tough courses. When he finished 6th at the U.S. Open, 2nd in the Masters, he's 2nd to Colin Morikawa in this field in approach over the last 36 rounds, just hitting the ball great. Just seems like a really good course. I don't know if he can win it at his experience. We thought that at the Masters and he finished 2nd, but 8,800, I think he's a prime DraftKings play. Very cool.
Who's a fade in this group?
I kind of wanted to fade Willie Z, even though there's no statistical reason. It's more just, I think, still maybe coming off the limelight of the Masters a little bit. Hasn't done much since Augusta. And that, I've mentioned here before, and that winning a major changes a person's life, and often there's a hangover. There could be a bit of a hangover for Willie Z as well, just stepping that much into the limelight now and out of the shadow, and now he's a guy. I mean, he's a guy that's going to have probably a Wednesday press conference this week, I would guess, which was never he's just become a more known figure in the game. And it's not a statistical reason. It's more of just your life has changed and how do you handle with the new normal. So he might be the guy that I kind of just breezed over. I did like that Berger pick a lot, though. I wanted to come back to that. He also, that power and control game, someone who's having a really, really solid season that for DFS might be a little under-owned as people kind of drift around that name on the board.
I'm hoping the Will Z, downtrend after the Masters was the blip there. He finished 42nd RBCers and missed the cut, but he hit the ball so well last week at Byron Nelson. He putted terribly, but 9.5 shots gained and approach, 10.7 tee to green. I think maybe the ball striking is back. And the last guy I want to talk about in this range, my fade, by the way, is Matthew Fitzpatrick. Lost strokes on approach 4 weeks in a row. I don't think the game is where it was maybe a couple months ago. We really liked him. I love Sung J M, but he's just not playing well enough for me to take him in this range too. But you look at Louis Oosthuizen. He's made 22 straight cuts in majors on U.S. soil, just really solid in majors. Playing really has 3 top 12s his last 6 tournaments with no missed cuts. A lot of it's been a hot putter though. He's number 1 in the field in short game in this field, and number 1 in putting last Thursday week. So it's hard. It's hard because the putting's hot, and we don't know how he's going to putt on this surface. But he's someone at 8,000. I think could slide through and not be super popular either.
I like hearing that. I like it. I like, save a little dollars too against some others in this tier. Yeah, yep. Jeff, when you're talking about that feeling, divination led me to pick Jason Day last week, and that didn't work out so well. So I'm going to try to go by stats more this week, I think. We'll see. But I don't know. I don't trust myself any more than I did in the past. Let's move on to the
your gut. Always, the gut is still, never ignore it. Don't
it's got to be a well-developed gut, though. You have to have a reason to have that gut. And, with baseball, I can trust my gut. I don't know if I'm there yet with golf, but we'll see. The 7,000s range. Guys, this is where you have the 2 guys that have played the most tournaments that have not missed a cut this season. And I know we're looking at it right now, so it's not really a trivia question. But, we got Adam Scott and Joaquin Niemann at 79 and 78 respectively that have made, or they're 11 for 11 and 15 for 15 in cuts. So you're looking for some consistency. It's there. Plus, old friend Abraham Answer leads this tier at 7,900. Shane Lowry 78, Casey 77, Day 77, Connors and Sergio and Leishman at 76. Burns, Watson, Goodland, Gary Woodland. I combined first and last name to call him Goodland. That's nice. 7,500. Maybe that'll be a nickname for him now. Maybe it'll stick. I doubt it. Harmon, Wallace, Westwood, Garrick Higo. I don't know him at all. At 74.
He's been killing the Euro Tour this year.
Okay, 70. Yeah. That shows how much I'm paying attention to the Euro Tour. That's why I have experts like you on the show. I'm just a talking head, and I'm just here to direct traffic. But they're all 74. Keegan Bradley, Charlie Hoffman, Max Homa are at 73. Matthew Wolf withdrew. He's not in. 72 is Russell Henley, Siwoo Kim, Harris English, Billy Horschel, Aaron Wise, all at 72. A lot of in the this is a pretty big tier. Kokrak, Tringali, Matt Jones, Ian Poulter, Cameron Champ, all at 71. And then to finish out, Chris Kirk, Emiliano Grillo, Bob McIntyre. He's getting a lot of love on Twitter. I've seen that at 7,000. Kisner, Kuchar, Ricky Fowler, not getting a lot of love. Martin Keimer, also at 7,000. I mean, we can almost break this into halves. I think we did that before in the past. What do you guys make out of this tier?
Options galore.
Yes, too many. I guess that's the whole point. It's the vast middle.
Yeah. This is, what do we say? Was it last week we said there really didn't feel like there was a middle tier in the field? This one is like the double stuff Oreo of right. Fields. I can't believe Adam Scott's 7,900 in India. I know he hasn't done a lot in majors lately, and he hasn't played since the Masters, but he's a big game hunter. He's a guy that he'll find a way to the top 10. More often than not, it feels like over the years when he's on form. The fact that he took time off from the Masters, and I caught a story where he said he, just needed some time to get his game right or just step back. Adam Scott is no stranger to the kind of midseason breaks too. He'll just kind of come and go and play his own schedule. But I just think, I don't know, anybody who's seen Adam Scott hit a golf ball, you just can't even believe he's ever an underdog, with that swing and the way he can strike it. And I still think, even at age 40, and certainly not at his career peak, I think he's a guy that can still make you money in a DFS game.
Interesting, because I am definitely no Adam Scott this week. I don't think the game is there right now. He's finished inside the top 10 0 times since February 2020. He had the 1/10th at Farmers this year, but I just don't think the game. I think the game is there to be really good. I don't think the game is there to really be a top 3 or a win right now. But he's one of those guys that you're right. He can drop the clubs and pick them up and be pretty good. But just to answer your question, Jeff, on Garrick Higo, last 4 Euro tournaments, T4 win, T8 win. So
that's good, right?
I said killing it. I wanted to make sure I was right with that. I knew he'd been doing really well, but he actually has been killing it. But I'm going to stick at the top half of the 7s. I mean, I think, we got to go back to Jeff's boy, Abe Answer, top 26, last 7 events. The question here is whether he can hit it far enough for it to work. I mean, he's like 120th in this field in driving distance. So you wonder if that hurts him. But I mean, he hits the ball so well. He was top 5 the last 2 weeks. His Valspar performance is all putting, but at Wells Fargo, he's striking the ball really well. Top 10 in the field in ball striking and approach last 36 rounds, just hitting it really well. We got to talk about Cory Connors too in this range, 7,600, and talk about guys hitting the ball well, but you just wonder the around the green and putting the last couple weeks where he lost strokes in both those stats the last couple weeks. So you wonder if that's going to hurt him here. Jeff mentioned earlier how difficult around the greens is at Kiawah, and I wonder there, but he's number 1 in ball striking in this field. If shots gains ball striking last 36 rounds, he's really hitting the ball well. 6th in off the tee, 3rd in approach. He struggled a lot at Wells Fargo, but it was all putting. So he's one of those guys that if he can putt average at this price, I mean, he's just, for how well he's hitting the ball, he's way, way down the list of pricing.
I wonder if Cory Connors would add the Gaming Golf logo to his golf bag at this point. He should. The publicity we've given him, I don't know that we've gone an entire show without mentioning him. He plays every week, and he just somehow still manages to be underpriced, even as career trajectory is clearly on the upswing. He's still down in the 7,000s. It doesn't make sense to me. I was the second guy I circled almost as a joke of, well, if Scott doesn't mention Cory Connors, I'm going to do it. He still seems like an outlier at that price.
And I was thinking in my head, if Scott doesn't mention him and Ritter doesn't mention him, well, I'm going to mention him. So there you go. So Gummy Johnson is right. No, you talk about high percentage though. I got to think a lot of people just as they're scrolling down, like, oh my God, Cory Connors 600, put him in right there. So I think if it depends what you do with the rest of your team, but if you want to fade a high percentage guy here, he's definitely gonna be the highest percentage in this range. Yeah, but I mean, I fading him didn't work so well in the Masters. I'll say that. It worked terribly in the Masters. He was like 6,800 and whatever he finished top 10. But I mean, if you wanted to be different, it's a way to do it. I'm going to have him on some teams for sure, though, just because I think the price is. I think he should be above maybe 8 or 10 guys that are in the kind of a little bit above. Maybe Shirley should be ahead of Tommy Fleetwood and Justin Rose and Sung Jae. Some of these guys he's playing much better than right now. It's just a name brand thing right there. But 7,600, he's very much in play. What about Neiman? We haven't talked about him at all, except for my little intro to him.
Interesting. I would certainly, if you're going to fill out multiple cards, he would be tempting for me as well. But I don't know. I just quickly, it was for me Scott Connors and then maybe Neiman as the third pick off that tier. I like him a lot though. I mean, he's another guy. Would it be shocking to see Joaquin Neiman playing, in the final couple of groups on Sunday afternoon? It would not. If I had a crystal ball and tell me that the wind kicked up over the weekend, he'd be a really good play for me. He played really well in Hawaii in the wind. He kind of dominated that one windy day. He's made 17 straight cuts. I'm a little bit worried about the around the green stuff. He's lost strokes around the green in 3 of the last 4 tournaments that are obviously the Masters in there is not. We don't have the shots gained stuff, but a little bit worried there. But I mean, he's just a guy that I love playing every week. And at 700, I think he's very playable again. If you want to be off the Abe Answer chalk and maybe a little different there, he's a nice pivot, just $100 cheaper. Sam Burns is the hottest golfer on the tour, second and first the last 2 weeks. 7,500 is. Can he step it up in a big field like this? For 7,500, I'd be willing to take a shot at it. Right? I think he's another good pick for a daily fantasy game. I don't know that I would place the straight ticket on him. I didn't see what his odds were. For some reason, I have him on my notes, but I didn't see. He's got to be about 60-1, I would guess. Hard to put him on the betting card for that, but I think a daily fantasy game. If the hottest golfer on the tour is priced at 7,500. Yeah, he is 60-1 exactly. I don't know if you can hear the storms in Texas rolling in. Can you guys hear that? We got a Got a big one outside of my window here.
I did hear something there. I was wondering if you were like descending into the bat cave, or it's just dark and cloudy there.
No, it's just a really dark afternoon.
I thought maybe you're putting in some new floors or something.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't get a floor.
I see what you did there. I see what you did there.
It's funny. I wanted to ask about the floors off the top. I would just assume our viewers would want to know as well if the kitchen.
Our tens of viewers will be happy to know that the home construction is done.
Nice.
And everything. We have some nice laminate on our floor, so it's all good. Okay. Anybody before we move on to the betting card? Anybody in the cheap seats? Who are we looking for? There's plenty of good options in the 6,000s. Anybody that you really like? We'll start with Jeff.
Well, it's not a cheapie, but just to get down to bouncing back to the 7,000s for a second, Keegan Bradley is just someone I started watching, just thinking about where I would want to go with this week. He was I think second or third place at Kiawah in 2012. Seems like he's found his game again, and he's got the right statistical profile. 5th in tee to green this year. That was my number one stat that I wanted to follow. And I'll take a guy who's on form and has some pretty good vibes from a place coming in. So, and I just noticed I was on Golf Odds a few weeks ago, and he was 200 to 1, and I thought, oh, that seems like I want to get in on that. And I checked it today, and he's bet all the way down to 80 to 1. So the sharps or somebody has caught onto this as well of, form meshing with course, meshing with, the right time. So for me, Keegan Bradley be another guy at the lower 7,000s that I'd look at. I also circled Bernd Wieseberger. I think beyond just the fact that I know how to say his last name, I think he's just another guy that is quietly put together a solid year, 6,700 on the DFS card. Doing most of his damage in Europe, but still someone that I flagged this week is maybe you can round out your lineup with him and get a made cut, and with any luck, maybe even a top 20 out of him.
So it's funny you mentioned Keegan, because that's the name I was going to go to before we left the 7,000. I haven't bolded on my sheet. I love how he's hitting it right now. Jeff mentioned the 5th in tee to green. He's 9th in this field in approach to. This is a guy that's top 10 in both those major stats this week. 8 straight made cuts, top 25 each of the last 3 weeks. He's one of those guys, like if he could putt average, I think you're looking at a top 20, and that, at this range, that's a huge value right there. And Jeff mentioned he was tied for 3rd here in 2012, so has an experience on this course. I do like Matt Wallace again at 7,400, a guy that we've gone back to a few times. Mm-hmm. He's playing really well, tee to green, top 20 the last couple weeks, top 35 the last 4 weeks. So he's someone that I do like. As we jump down lower, I think Charles Schwartzel at 6,800 is a nice play at the price. Recent form is really good. Top 26 his last 4 tournaments. Last 3 tournaments, shots gained approach 6.2, 6.8, 4.6. We look at that of the key stats, and you get someone that kind of pops in the 6,800s or 6,000s. That's a guy that I'm going to play on some squads and try and get in some expensive guys. Emiliano Grillo is interesting at 7,000. Another guy who's hitting the ball really well right now. Gained 7+ shot gain on approach in 2 of his last 3. He was really bad off the tee last tournament. Wells Fargo with a little bit of concern there, but playing really well. 3 top 25s last 4 tournaments. At 7,000, I think he's in the range. We talked about him a couple weeks ago. He's like 8,500, and I was a fade on him. But get him in the 7,000s, I think he becomes a guy that can pop and finish in the top 20, and that's kind of what you're looking for in the range.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Voraciously scribbling notes here to try to put together. I'll probably have a few more lineups than I usually do this week, but
Can we hit one more guy before we get out of here?
Of course.
There's a guy that's going to be pretty popular in the 7,000 we didn't really talk about. How do you guys feel about Paul Casey this week?
I hadn't really thought about him. He wasn't really. I kind of just glossed over him quickly. What makes you think he's? He just hit it.
Did you think the name of the 7,700? He hit it really well at Valspar a couple weeks ago, and he was really hot coming into there. He was on fire in January to March, and maybe looking to get it back. He putted poorly at Valspar, kind of hid how well he hit the ball. Tee to green numbers of 5 of the last 6 are really elite. He's got over 6 shots gained tee to green in 4 of his last 6. And he's the guy that is going to make the cut. Maybe won't win, but I think, I wouldn't be surprised if we look up and we're like, T12 for Paul Casey. And he's a good value at 7,700.
Yeah. And, he missed the cut at the Heritage, but besides that, his results have been pretty good this year. 8, 5, 10, 5, 26, 21. I think he closed well at the Valspar 68 on Sunday, closed well at the Masters, just kind of dug himself a little bit of a hole. I mean, I think I'd love to be able to see him actually string together 2 good early rounds would be nice. And kind of did that actually at Pebble Beach. And of course he finished 5th there. So
yeah, if he had putted just like a little bit below average at Valspar, he would have been a top 10. I think a lot of people will be talking about him this week. So I think it's hidden in there is how badly he putted. It's kind of hiding him a little bit.
Right. And he won't be chalky as he was at the Masters. So that's awfully nice.
Yeah, I think there'll be some ownership, but with Answer right there and Cory Connors right next to him, I think that kind of eats up some of the ownership too.
Yep. Yeah, I think you're probably right about that. Let's go to the betting sheet here. Both of you kind of suggested it's not that fun to bet favorites. Is there one of the top tier guys that you would think that have at least reasonable odds?
Yeah, it's either JT or Xander for me in the top tier. I think I'm gonna go JT. He's 14.5 to 1 right now. I like the price over the Rory, whatever he is, 9 or 11 to 1. I think of the top tier, I'm only gonna take one of them because I want to play some middle guys. I'm gonna have a couple guys in the 30s, a couple guys later, but JT's gonna be my bet at the top at 14.5 to 1.
I would go Bryson, who I pulled at 16 to 1 off golf odds. Are you using DraftKings odds? I guess.
Yeah, it's the same. He's 16 to 1 still. Also.
Okay. Yeah. What is Patrick Reed? I had him on my card and I forgot.
35 to 1 on DraftKings Sportsbook right now.
Ooh, that's tempting. Hovland 22 to 1 would immediate play for me for the reason we talked about before. Finau 40 to 1, and then it's hard to go back to Keegan now that he's down to 80 to 1. He was going to be my favorite 200 to 1 bet of all time if he had stayed there. But I think, I don't know, for Cory Connors, 60 to 1. 2 mentions of Cory Connors this week. So now we should be on his golf bag and maybe on his driver cover at this point. But Cory Connors even is tempting too, all the way down to 60 to 1. So I don't know. I don't see a lot of like 100 to 1, 200 to 1. Adam Scott's 100 to 1. I don't think Adam Scott is going to win this week, but I think he could very sneakily, finish 12th. I probably stay in the upper tier for just picking the straight ticket.
Yeah, I open up my ticket a little bit on majors. I admit that maybe not the smartest thing always, but I bet a few more guys. So I'm going to have JT. I'm going to have Daniel Berger and Colin Morikawa at 30 to 1. You give me Colin Morikawa at 30 to 1 in any tournament, I'm going to bet that every time, and it's worked. It's worked really well. I've hit him on his last 2 winners, the PGA and then whatever event he won earlier this year at pretty good odds. And then in the middle, I like Will Zalatoris at 55. I know it's tough to win as a young guy like that, but 55 to 1 I think is a good price. Keegan and Cory Connors at 70 to 1 are both guys I'm going to have a few bucks on. And then as we drop way down the end, there's one guy, Charles Schwartzel, 110 to 1. I think it's worth a couple of bucks. And he's a guy down here that could win, which is all you want. I mean, it's a long shot for a reason. But as you get the names down here, it's hard to see guys winning rather than just competing. And I think Charles is a guy that, if things break right, maybe the weather gets a little dicey, he could win this as in there. So 110 to 1, a couple of bucks on him. But JT, Berger, and Morikawa are my 3 faves and among like guys under 35 to 1.
Very good. Very good. Any parting words you want to discuss? Like any, for instance, any one and done picks, anything else, any other fades, anything else, any other parting shots? Jeff, you go first.
I used my one and done last week on Bryson. I would be very tempted to use it here, but I sort of found myself thinking about, I came down to either Hovland, who might be the worst chipper among the elite players, and Patrick Reed, who might be the best, but lacks in other areas. And I'm going to go with Hovland as my one and done over Patrick Reed. But I'm very much looking forward to this week. The PGA, this is about as good, I think, as a PGA can get. I think coming in, I'm really excited for this, and the venue. It's really going to be a fun time, I think, to watch this. Would be not fun at all to play it. But a great spectating week for sure.
Well, I think if I have unlimited golf balls, I think it'd be a blast to play it. Just to
I played it once, and it was just total carnage. And we played it from like 6,600 yards probably, and it was a bloodbath. Played it with a group of guys. We're all like 12 to 18 handicaps. I don't think anybody broke 100, and this was in March and 3 years ago, and it was just like, get me out of here. This place is just just tough golf course.
Jeff, before I go with my one and done, give me yours because I'm going to forget to ask if I go first.
Oh, okay. I like to be just the talking head and just do that.
I'm making you pick.
Gotta have picks.
I'm going to go super chalky and say Rory.
I have Justin Thomas available, and I'm behind in one and done this year. Last year I was really good. This year I'm struggling. So I'm gonna go JT with the big, gigantic, major purse this week. I think JT gets it done this week. I think he wins. I think he wins by a couple shots. And the fun thing about this course is 17 and 18. 18 is the second hardest hole in the course. 17 is the sixth hardest hole in the course. So if you got a 2-shot lead coming at 17 18, that is no sure thing. I think we're going to see some fun action on 17. I think it's going to be a really fun close. It's a par 4 18th, second hardest hole. I think it's going to be a lot of fun on 18. Anybody with a couple shots could win it to coming down the stretch.
Yeah, I would encourage our audience actually to look up highlights of the 91 Ryder Cup, which is when this course first opened. That's the Ryder Cup known as the War by the Shore. And you will see some of the worst golf shots you've ever seen a professional golfer hit on the 17th hole at Kiawah. I mean, you had guys just like cold shanking it and just like topping it into the water under so much pressure. And that tee shot is utterly terrifying from the middle tees where I played it, and when they're back there, it's a very, very tough golf course.
17's a par 3, right?
Yeah. Okay. Over water and just like it's
yeah.
Very,
I
very
saw
scary.
JT hitting some shots there. He put him on Instagram yesterday, and he's like, oh, I hit that ball perfectly, and it went in the water. So it's they're still trying to figure out how to play that hole.
Yeah, and we all get a little bit of Schadenfreude, oh, look at these pros struggle. It's awesome. And you add in the Ryder Cup tension. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. I love it. But I love it more when it's except for when it's your golfer, then you hate it. But you're like, I do that all the time. And I guess on that note, we'll conclude today's podcast. Everybody, thanks for watching the live stream. Please let us know what you want to see more of, what you want to see a little less of. You let us know. Give us feedback. We are open to it. But appreciate everybody listening to Gaming Golf. Good luck in your PGA entries, and have a great week.